Folks, all of you know that Legacy Precious Metals is a great sponsor of the Doug Collins podcast, and I can't tell you right now a more important time to know Legacy Precious Metals. They're right now, your investment portfolio, if you look at the stock market right now, you look at the inflation that's going on, you look at the uncertainty out there, I'm going to tell you, the investments that you're making need to have gold and silver to be a part of it. You need the precious metals. Navigators are people who have been there, they know what to look out for, and they know how to come back and navigate you through the streams of your financial situation, whether it's for your retirement or whether it's just in your long-term investment strategies. Legacy Precious Metals folks are people who listen. They listen to you, they listen to your needs, and they help you navigate this uncertain financial times. When you're seeing the fluctuations back and forth, people will actually need to find a place where they have a portfolio that is balanced. Having gold and silver in that portfolio is something that you can have as part of yours. Just go find them at legacypminvestments.com.
Do you want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it? The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered, and this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun.
Hey everybody, today's going to be a great episode. It's one that I've been fascinated now for a while, and the things we're going to talk about: aging, stem cells, the advancements in technology, how we deal with our health and our bodies, and it's just something that everybody deals with. We're all the time here talking about different issues on the Doug Collins podcast, from politics to life to everyday. And this one is one I've been excited about for years, and as someone who has looked into it, looked at how stem cells, the usage of them, and also our in our bodies, how we can help make our bodies better. It's been something that I've always wanted to dive into deeper, but also have somebody that can actually be an expert on it. And this today is exciting because we have Dr. Vincent Giampapa on, one of the leading experts in this field. He's been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, probably if he got this all right, but a Nobel Prize on his work, but also many patents. And just in an exciting kind of comment today, we're going to have a great time discussing this. So, Dr. Giampapa, welcome to the show.
My pleasure, Doug. My pleasure. It's an amazing topic because the model of medicine today is a model that is antique and really can't handle what's going to happen in the immediate future. That is a growth of the aging population on a global basis. Today's model of medicine treats symptoms with medications, but not the origin of the diseases we all suffer as we get older. And stem cell therapies are one of the key ways in order to really make a major difference in people's health as we get older, quality of life, and can dramatically drop the cost of healthcare in the future too.
And I think that's something that, no matter how you're listening, that is something that we've got to look forward to. And how you talk about the fact of how our aging population, this just doesn't affect everybody as they normally get older and we're living longer and doing more things. It affects, social policies, everything else from criminal justice to, how we deal in general. So let's go back for just a second. Let's start about how you got started. I mean, from your experience in medicine and surgery and others, and then what brought you to where you are now in the last number of years in being a leader in this field, especially of stem cells and of aging.
Sure. So I was trained at Mount Sinai Medical School and at NYU as a microsurgeon, first as a general surgeon, then as a microsurgeon, and as a plastic surgeon. And frankly, one of the things that always fascinated me was how different people healed in different ways, especially as they got older. So I started to really look into why do people heal differently. And frankly, as a young resident, I was a little bit of I would say radical, because I would argue with my senior doctor saying, why are we taking these older people to surgery if they're not going to heal well? Their albumin, their protein levels weren't high. And I was kind of hushed, saying, we're surgeons, we deal with what happens, what we have to do now, and we'll deal with that later. So that was always something that kind of got me into this whole concept of nutrition, number one, cellular nutrition. But then as I practice surgery in both general reconstructive surgery and then cosmetic surgery, I mean, I realized even as a cosmetic surgeon, what I was doing, I was really an illusionist, because what I was doing was covering up the aging process with these new techniques that we could do to make people look younger, but we weren't doing anything to undo the cause that was, lying within their bodies. And that was about 25 years ago when I started really looking into what happens as we age. And at that time, we formed the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, myself, Dr. Klatz, Dr. Goldman, so that we really focus on what's happening with the aging process.
Well, you just brought up something interesting, and let's dive into it just a little bit, and that is that aging process. Explain to our listeners, who some of them, we got a lot of folks who are young. They're still trying to say, how do they stay young and get, more active? You have a lot of listeners in their 50s, like myself, 40s, that are in that process of changing. You have also some older listeners. Explain what you mean by the cell and that cell breakdown, and using that from a health perspective, not just fixing the quote immediate problem, but the healthy underlying issue as well.
So let me explain this, is that basically for the first time, the American Medical Society, as well as the World Health Organization, is really starting to consider aging a disease. Now, this is a quantum leap forward from where we've been in the past. And once we start considering aging as a disease, and we now feel it can be treated, we have the technology and science to do that. So underlying this whole process of aging are changes in a number of areas in our body. Our stem cells are really the regenerative system that we're all born with. And by the way, we're all born with a fixed number of stem cells. And I like to use the analogy that, would you walk into a car dealer and say to them, I want that beautiful car, but you only get one tank of gas. And if you drive that car, if you don't really take care of that car, it's not going to take you that far. And that's really the analogy that we have with our bodies. So we're all born with a fixed number of stem cells. And what that really means is, as our body cells wear out, those stem cells are called to the areas where there's been damage or wear and tear, and they have to replace the tissues, our heart, our lungs, our muscles, our ligaments, even our brain cells. So the quicker you use those up, or the more trauma you receive in your body, the quicker that the whole pool of regenerative cells, your regenerative potential, decreases, the quicker you start to experience age-related diseases, and the quicker you die. So what I'm trying to say is that up until, I would say, about the last 8 or 9 years, there was really nothing you could do about that one tank of gas, so to speak. About 8 years ago, I started to collect and store all 3 of the key stem cell types that we have. And this is really important to understand. We have 3 major forms of stem cells: hematopoietic stem cells, which form the basis of our immune system; endothelial progenitor cells, which grow, maintain, and create new blood vessels; and then the mesenchymal stem cells, which are the key ones for regenerative potential. They can morph into 220 different types of tissue. But the other thing is they're tremendously anti-inflammatory. And as we grow older, inflammation starts to increase. And frankly, inflammation is at the root cause of virtually all the diseases we experience as we get older. So imagine you're running out of, decade by decade, year by year, you're running out of all 3 of these stem cell types. So what happens is you succumb to a virus or a bacteria because your immune system is weak. Or you have a stroke or a heart attack because your blood vessels can't maintain their ideal function. Or, which happens to all of us, you start to lose function in the key organs that are essential to keep you healthy: your liver, your heart, your immune system. So as these 3 major types of stem cells start to get decreased, you not only lose number, but you lose function, because the cells get damaged over time, particularly damage to the DNA inside those cells, which is what regulates their function. So here's where we are today. We can now collect and store all 3 of those stem cell types. And frankly, there's 2 key windows to do that. My children in their 20s had their stem cells stored, because as they hit their late 30s and 40s, they'll start getting those stem cells back to fill their tank up, so to speak, and to make sure that their levels and quality of those cells are there for the rest of their lives. Now, for other people like us who are 50 and above, those cells are still very valuable, even though they've suffered a little bit of damage. But the secret is we collect them, and then every year we give back hundreds of millions of those to our patients so they can maintain that regenerative potential and have an improved quality of life. So that's just one of the key things that started this whole movement in cellular therapies. And I'll also get into one other thing. Some of the most amazing new research is the fact that animals who get back their younger versions of their stem cells live 40% longer than the maximum lifespan. So what does that mean if you translate that to humans? Let's say the maximum lifespan we know in humans is about 120 at the moment, but add 40% to that. So you're looking at living dramatically longer, okay? But more importantly, let's say it doesn't translate to humans, maybe it's only 20%. That means that if we do what we're doing right now, you have an extra 2 decades of good quality health and time. And this is what we're really talking about today is how do we extend the last couple of decades of our life so we have ideal function, we can contribute to society, we can spend more time with people we love, and it's really about extending health span. And what we've done is we've looked at the numbers. If we can delay aging just by 10 years, just delay it or decrease the magnitude, we save trillions and trillions of dollars in healthcare, because the last 2 decades of our life is when all of those expenses kick in.
Exactly. Well, let's take this and break it down a little bit. I mean, in looking at all the aspects of what you just talked about, starting at 20, 50, we have people at different places. Let's explain that process. What does that mean if I was sitting here today and I came to you and said, Dr. Jim Pop, I want to talk about my stem cells. I want to capture those. What does capturing mean? What does it entail? That kind of stuff.
So first of all, let me explain what the situation is here in the U.S. and frankly in most countries globally. So in most countries, you can collect, store stem cells. As in the U.S., we can collect them, store them for future use. We can't give them back to you. Okay, so under very limited circumstances, for instance, if you have cancer, if you are part of a research study in a major university, then you could use your cells. Frankly, most people even store the cord blood of their children can't really use those cells unless there's a very limited potential application for those cells. So, excuse me. So the secret here is, if we can collect and store them, why can't we use them? And so we'll get into that in a few minutes. But the secret here is today, we can collect your cells and store them. And there's certain medications we give for 3 days prior to a collection, which releases billions and billions of stem cells of all 3 types into your body. That actually really is the first treatment people get when they go to collect, because that release of billions of cells is a regenerative treatment. Those cells will start to repair damage in your blood vessels, boost your immune function, and decrease the inflammation we're all fraught with as we get older. So we can do that now, and we can do it in the U.S. Sorry, but we can't use those cells as a preventive health maintenance thing. So 8 years ago, what I did was look for an environment where we could do that. And that's why I moved my major research and my treatment facilities to Costa Rica. Here we found a government who was very receptive to the idea of maintaining a healthy, functional life as we grew older. And what we had to do is really show them that this was safe and effective, which we were able to do. And so we received a government license to treat people with stem cells for a number of different reasons or age-related conditions. So today we have the option with new technology, and let me give you an example of this. We can measure how quickly you're aging at the moment. We can measure how quickly you're aging compared to other people your age. We can look at 900,000 points on your personal genome from 5 drops of blood with a home test kit. Now, the technology has advanced so much in the last 2 years that now we have data to actually show what we're doing is working, and we can show people in as short as 8 months that they've reversed their genetic age by 10 to 12 years. And so what does that really mean to them statistically? We now know that if you can reverse your genetic age by 7 years, so if you're 50, okay, and your initial test says, okay, you're 50, these are the same genes as a 50-year-old, 8 months later, we can retest you and show you your genetic age is equal to a 43-year-old. Here's what that means. If we can reverse your genetic age by 7 years, which we do all the time, you've decreased your chances of dying in the next 7 years by 56%. You've decreased your chances of obtaining chronic diseases of aging by 54%. And my personal testing, I've reversed my genetic age by 18 years. And most of our patients are reversing them 12, 15, 18 years. So the secret here is working at the origin of aging, which is how our genes work. And today we have the technology to do that from home test kits, which is amazing.
That is amazing when you look at the study. Let's say you take the test, we come to you for collection. What and I want to break this down because there'll be some people out there who listen to this podcast and are sharing this podcast, and they want to say, okay, this is something that I want to try. They may be in their 20s, they may be in their 30s, 40s, 50s, wherever they're at. What is, when you talk about this treatment, that first treatment that you start to amplify your stem cells, how do you collect those? Is that a blood capture? Is that a marrow capture? How is that done?
So this is that's a superb question. So at the Regenerative Medicine Institute, RMI, what we do is we give a medication for 3 days prior to someone being collected. And that's a little subcutaneous injection. It's like a tiny, tiny needle. And people do that themselves at home. We then have them come to our center in San Jose, Costa Rica. We have them they sit down in a really nice room with a big screen TV, and we hook up an intravenous line to one arm and an intravenous line to the other arm. And it's virtually painless. A special machine called an apheresis machine, similar to what a kidney dialysis machine would look like. But that special machine you sit on for about 2.5 hours. And what it does is it can selectively collect all 3 of those key stem cell types. Now here's the secret. The medication that we use to release those stem cells, again, which start to treat the diseases of aging and tissue decline, the medication we use releases only newly formed stem cells, which mean that they haven't been sitting around in your body getting damaged, and they're extremely effective. So those are floating through your body. For instance, if you have a bad shoulder or even a bad heart, we use a special device that's an electrical field that will draw more stem cells to that area while we're collecting you. So you're actually getting a general treatment, but a directed treatment to different parts of your body to help it heal quicker and regenerate the damaged tissues. That takes about 2.5 hours. Those cells are then put into cryopreservation. That means they're at minus 180 degrees centigrade. Now, when that happens, those cells stop aging, but your body continues to age because you're here in another environment. So we've literally been able to freeze or stop the aging process in the most important part of your body, the regenerative component or system of your body. So that release is the first treatment, and people usually feel dramatically better for months on end. They have less inflammation, usually more energy. But what they've done is frozen the most important part of their body for future use, the regenerative cells. And this is where the future of medicine will be, as preventive medicine, personalized medicine, and now we're able to literally show them the impact of what those cells can do with this new technology.
Well, and I think that leads to the next sort of questions in this, and I see that. And so you would stay there, you take that, then they come home from Costa Rica if they're and they get back. Let's say they've been back home. Is there a pattern, a timing? Is it like a preventative, medicine, like every 5 years, every year using those, or as I've heard a lot of stem cell usage here, especially the kind that we're talking about here, is in like you sort of alluded to. Yeah, I got a knee injury, an athlete who gets a knee injury, or just a person who has a shoulder, a tear in their their shoulder or their knee, whatever that may be. How would we use what we've captured, and how many times do you have to capture?
Okay, here's the really good news. You only have to get those cells collected or capture those cells once in your life. And let me explain to you now. So once we collect all three of those stem cell types, the mesenchymal stem cells are the ones that can morph into all 220 different types of tissue. So we get a bag of cells this big, 300 cc's, a large amount. That's enough for the next probably 50, 60 years at least. But we can now isolate out, for instance, the mesenchymal stem cells from the ones we've collected, and then expand those to billions. So you never run out of those cells. Those are the cells we would use if somebody has a bad knee, shoulder, or whatever. We can transplant those cells under ultrasound guidance and with a tiny needle to exactly where the damage in the ligament is, or the cartilage is, or the muscle is. We can use those cells, for instance, if people have had damage to their nerves, and if we transplant those cells along the nerve roots, those nerves start to fire again, and the scar tissue that's entrapped in those nerves gets released. We can use those just to drop inflammation rates, for instance, in diseases like Lyme's disease, fibromyalgia, or autoimmune diseases in general. Those mesenchymal stem cells, your own cells, dramatically decrease the symptoms, and in a number of cases can actually put autoimmune disease into remission. So this is a whole new approach to using the power of your body's own cells. And so collecting once gives you the opportunity to use those cells in multiple fashions.
Okay, how then, in seeing that, so, and I can understand, say if I twisted my knee, I'm a runner, I like to go run, but yet as I've grown old, that inflammation, my knees, my ligaments, I mean, I've just wore them out over the years. If I did that and I said, okay, I'm gonna come get a treatment after the collection, how long after the collection could you actually say get a treatment for a knee or a shoulder?
You could get a collection. At the time of collection, you could have the treatment for a knee or shoulder an hour later, at the same time that you're there. So you don't have to make a separate trip for that. The most common thing is we do a collection, and people will say, both of my knees or my low back or my cervical spine. As soon as you're done with that collection, we let you have lunch or, and again, because we don't have to put you to sleep, we can do that. If it's just a knee, we can do that under local anesthesia. If you're going to have something that multiple sites or a low back, we tell you not to eat, obviously, and we can do that with a little bit of sedation, like a colonoscopy type thing, so you don't feel or do anything. Frequently, we will do 2 knees, 2 shoulders, and a low back, because people have multiple sites. And that we do under very what we call IV sedation, like a colonoscopy type of thing.
Okay, that's the sort of the known scene. I mean, and it's become more popular. You hear it on, everybody, from MMA fighters, Joe Rogan. I mean, there's hunters, all have done this, and they swear by it. And it's been something, that's what first caught my attention to this technology, why I wanted to talk to you so much about that. And we'll get into that a little bit further. But what about the other cells? And especially, because I mean, there's a lot of listeners on here who've had the experience of, and I'm just curious here, in my own family with Alzheimer's, dementia, those kind of things. Where are we in that, or is that something that can be explored with this technology?
Yeah, so when we look at the literature, that where the state of the art is for Alzheimer's disease is probably one of the most, I would say, impactful disease processes of aging that are going to cost this country trillions of dollars in the next 2 decades. And it's a disease process of chronic inflammation. That's really the bottom line. So what's being done now is there's two ways of treating that. If we've collected your cells and we have those cells, we would isolate out the mesenchymal stem cells, the anti-inflammatory ones. And with a spinal, what a spinal tap is, where we make a little needle puncture into the spine, we can infuse those cells directly into the spinal canal, which then go right to the brain and dramatically decrease the inflammation that has been causing Alzheimer's. We can also use those cells in a nasal inhalation or vaporization, where you breathe them in, and when they go into the nose, there's the mucous membranes in the nose allow those cells, or the ingredients of those cells, to go directly into the brain to help as well. So normally, if somebody's having cognitive problems, whether it's Alzheimer's disease or just general cognitive decline with all of us, we would do mainly the nasal inhalation and an IV infusion as well. So let me give you an example of something very similar: multiple sclerosis, which here is treated with medications in the U.S. And there's rapidly progressing, there's intermittent, there's different types of MS. I've had a 44-year-old gentleman who was on medications for 8-9 years, NYU, Columbia Presbyterian, was just getting worse and worse. So he came to me and said, look, I understand this is something that's not a normal treatment, but what can you do? And I said, we have a protocol for that. He came to us in 4 days. He had 100 million cells transplanted into the spinal canal, which went to his brain. And he had 2 days with a day of rest of another 100 million of these mesenchymal stem cells. On the 4th day, he became continent. He no longer needed his diapers. On the 5th day, he started to be able to get out of his wheelchair, and then we let him go home. It was a good sign. 4 weeks after that, he walked into the restaurant with his wife and mother and father and had dinner with me. He hadn't been able to walk or even be continent for 8 years. Now, these are the type of things that keep myself and the other 5 doctors at our team excited about helping people with technologies that are safe. Yes, they're cutting edge, but the key thing here is we can help people who would otherwise have been helpless, and there's nothing with our present medical system that they would have been able to have or done to themselves to really make a difference.
That makes it interesting. Now, would he, and just as a follow-up question, that would he have to have further inductions of these stem cells into his system, or is this going to carry him further in that case?
So this is where we get into, like, things are personalized. Everybody has reacts slightly differently. There are people who you give them one treatment, they go into what we call remission, because those cells tend to regulate the autoimmune process where the body's attacking its own cells. There's other people who have basically get back to normal for 6 months or a year, and then if their symptoms even start to come back, we hit them again with another treatment. So it really depends. But the secret here is, within days we can improve the quality of their lives, whereas the medication they're using may or may not help for a while, or may put them into a state where they're better. But the real cause here is chronic inflammation in the body. So let me tell you about one other new kind of advance that a whole new way of looking at this too for inflammation is a process called plasmapheresis. So 55% of our blood is that clear yellowish fluid in our bodies. So we have about 3.5 liters of that in our body. So what we found out is, as we age, that fluid collects all these pro-inflammatory compounds, autoimmune compounds, and frankly, even virus particles like Epstein-Barr or even COVID particles. When we put people on the same machine, change the setting a little just to remove that plasma and restore with new clean saline and new protein, people, for instance, with Parkinson's disease, the next morning they're not shaking. People with chronic inflammation or even viral viral problems like long COVID syndrome, where they're still foggy and they're not their energy, dramatic improvement in a day. So this is all part of treating the underlying causes of aging, which is that chronic inflammation. So to me, this is an amazing way to reach out to people who, at the moment, with our present model of medicine, we don't have anything that we can really say we can make a difference for their quality of life.
Okay. Well, you brought up something interesting. You talk about our current model of medicine. I have a lot of friends in the medical industry and the medical profession who've done this, and we sort of left this one out here for a little bit. Let's bring it back now. You can collect the stem cells here but you collect them in Costa Rica, correct? You do.
Yeah, well, yeah. So you can collect them and store them here.
Okay.
But then they'd have to be transferred to Costa Rica, and that transfer process is $3,000 or $4,000 just to transfer them.
All right. Okay.
So that's why we say
Might as well just come to Costa Rica.
and you can get treated. So if you come to our center there, and frankly, you can see it's called. If you look on the web, rmi-international.com, you will see something that looks like Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills. And it is an unbelievable state-of-the-art facility, and it's the only facility in Central America that has government license to legally do this. So this is amazing.
It is amazing, and it is amazing for people. All right, let's hit the topic. Okay, why is this not allowed here?
Okay, so we're going to get into another area here, and I'll be bluntly honest. In the U.S., our model of medicine is to treat symptoms with medications. Now, we're not working at the cause of those disease symptoms. We're buffering the effects of what's going on inside our cells. So, frankly, Big Pharma has a tremendous interest in lobbying to kind of slow down or the acceptance or avoid cellular therapies because, frankly, they have billions of dollars in their pipeline of developing new drugs. 7 to 10 years, billions of dollars, hundreds of millions per drug. Now, if cellular therapy becomes popular, the need for many of those drugs is going to decrease dramatically. And so their whole goal here is to maintain the status quo. Let's keep on using medications. The insurance industry is all about approving medications. So what we're doing is fighting the system that has been in place for decades and decades. And again, you can't patent your own cells. So that's another thing that keeps this technology from being not really a mainstream event.
So is there a legal prohibition in the United States of using this? Is there from a perspective, like for those of us who are in Congress, or those are, you look at the issue of saying, okay, is there a medical prohibition here, or is there just a general unwillingness to be used or can't be funded, however you want to look at it?
Yeah, so, I've been involved in speaking to a number of people in Congress and the Senate. Particularly, it's like there is a active process to actually give stem cell therapy a reputation that it's not completely safe yet. It's not ready for prime time, so to speak. Despite the fact that there's thousands of published peer-reviewed journals that say for arthritic conditions, it can dramatically reduce pain. It may even grow back some cartilage. For instance, even heart attacks, post-heart attacks. There's papers that document heart muscle can be regrown, blood vessels can be improved. But again, there's a delay in this acceptance of it as a potential legal therapy still. And frankly, 2 administrations prior to this present administration, but prior to that administration leaving the government, they made your stem cells drugs. So now that's what really delayed things further. So let me give you an example of why the absurdity. As a physician, if you're anemic, I can order red blood cells from the blood bank and give them to you. No, not even your cells. If you're having a problem with your immune function, I could order white blood cells, give them back to you. That's legal. Stem cells are nothing more than a fraction, a special fraction of the white blood cells, but I can't give those back to you. So what you're seeing is, even though I can give you back cells from another person that have been collected and stored, but I can't give you back your own cells that have been collected and stored because our government has designated them drugs.
Interesting enough. Do you think some of that, and I'm assuming you said 2 ago, that would have been probably the Bush administration that did that. Was there?
No, it would be the one right after
No,
that.
the Obama. Okay, here we go. I understand. I start to see here a little bit. But the question becomes: was the determination to make stem cells tied to a drug, which is, again, this is just ludicrous. That's the most unheard of decision I could ever imagine. But was it tied to the moralistic question that comes in, that is often tied to fetal stem cells?
Yes. See, this whole concept of stem cells can be very confusing to people because there's your own stem cells, adult stem cells. There's fetal stem cells, which no one uses. There's umbilical cord stem cells, which are thrown out in the birth cords, but those umbilical cord stem cells are amazingly potent. And frankly, umbilical cord stem cells are very young adult stem cells. So we actually manufacture umbilical cord stem cells to use for patients who haven't had their opportunity to be collected. I have professional athletes who come down. They haven't had their cells collected, so they don't have the option to use them. But we can use umbilical cord stem cells to treat ligaments, muscles, joints with a very, very good success rate just from those type of cells. So there's a confusion because there's a lot to understand about what cells can do what things, and there's different types of stem cells. But no one ever uses fetal stem or embryonic stem cells because of the moral ethical issues, which though that arises. And frankly, we don't have to, because we have umbilical cord stem cells. We can take your stem cells from your fat or from your bone marrow. But what we do at RMI, the Regenerative Medicine Institute, is we let you sit once for about 2.5 hours. You never have to sit again. We collect all 3 stem cell types, and we can remove a small portion and then expand or clone those anti-inflammatory regenerative cells to billions and never have to go back to your bone or fat or anything again.
Well, and I think, just for the listeners here, that may have this, and because I think when they first hear stem cells, I mean, they immediately go because of the social aspect of the fetal cell. Just to let you know, in reading up on Dr. Jim Poppins and his background, he's actually been a part of the Vatican and others. And so if this had been actually a moral issue, believe me, he would have never been there to actually discuss that. So I'm glad you defined that. What could be, before we turn to just the last little bit here, but what could we do, or what is a possibility? Because one of the things is, by making it where you can't have the treatments here, it also has a cost aspect to that, and it increases the cost, which is, how can there be more pressure put on the federal government, especially in declaring stem cells to be drugs, to get them just reclassified as, frankly, blood or anything else that we use? Where is that in the process right now?
That's a really good question, and I would love to have an opportunity to speak to some of the people in the Senate and even in the House, or people who are actively involved in healthcare in the government level, to give them a look at the latest data and safety factors with what's been published in peer-reviewed journals, to show them this is something that really should have a second look at this point in time. But again, we'll be fighting the big industries that do whatever they can to lobby against this. It's going to be a tough, but I think it's going to be a very difficult battle. But at the same time, I think what we're doing out of the country is allowing us to gather more and more safety data to show and present to the government here that this is the future of medicine. And we have within our bodies the regenerative potential to really extend health span dramatically. And if I could entertain you for about a minute and tell you what happened at the Vatican, this was one of the biggest moments of my life. So I was presenting my research, how we could reverse the aging process. in adult stem cells. From 80-year-old people bring their stem cells back to 30-year-old functioning stem cells without moving or replacing genes. So when I finished, the head cardinal, and I was doing this in front of global TV and the whole College of Cardinals. So the head cardinal from the Vatican Science Department stood up and said to me, "Young man, why would you want to make people live longer? It's against God's will." So you can imagine, I'm thinking, what am I going to say here? And it's funny because I looked over his head and there I saw one of the statues from Michelangelo, and something, it just dawned on me. So I said to him, "Your Holiness, this is not about making people live longer. It's about helping them live healthier and giving them a few extra years of healthy quality time. Not that they're going to live longer, but they're going to be healthier the last part of their lives." And he looked at me, didn't say anything, and I responded and said, "Can you imagine, Your Holiness, if Da Vinci had lived just a few more years in good health, what would have he contributed to society?" And I said, "What about Botticelli or Mozart or Michelangelo?" This is about helping us stay healthier longer so we can do the things we love to do and contribute. Well, it got me through that. And frankly, I got a standing ovation after making that comment. But the big thing here is this is about extending healthy time that we already have, rather than spending the last decade or two with 10 medications and being in a wheelchair and not being able to improve or share that time with people we love doing the things we love to do.
Exactly. If somebody's listening to, let's transition here for just a moment. If somebody's interested in being a part of this process, coming to RMI, doing those kind of things, where can they find? I mean, you talked about the website. Is it still an issue right now of cost prohibitive? Are there ways that they can make arrangements to play that? I'm sure insurance is not a factor in this at this point. How is that work for most people if they would like to try this?
Sure. So if you go to rmi-international.com, rmi-international.com, you'll find the website has a way you can contact our key person who's involved in patient relationships, who can give them, for instance, to do a collection and storage runs around $10,000 or $11,000. Now that's not cheap, but when you consider you do that once the rest of your life, and it runs about $500 or $600 a year to maintain your cells in cryopreservation with the latest technology. I mean, the cryopreservation units don't even need electricity. They generate their own liquid nitrogen, so they never go down. Now, the secret here is these are the type of things that can be paid over time, like you would buy a car, like do monthly payments. There's ways that they can be done. People can pay for it all at once. In fact, a lot of people in our age group borrow from their life insurance program, that the life insurance policies they have, and then they pay their own policies back. So frankly, it doesn't cost them anything. They don't even have to pay their policies back. They could just take $10,000 out of a policy that's already prepaid and never have to pay a penny.
Interesting. All right. Well, and look, I encourage people to go to see that. Let's transition though, because I have also had a great time talking to your son, who we share the same name. We're part of the Doug Caucus here, and that is not only this with regeneration, this with stem cells, which is I'm very interested in, but also living healthy every day. Healthy Cell. I know you've been a part of that. How spend this last couple of minutes though, again, reemphasizing not only what we have the potential for here in stem cell, and not only the potential, but the actual fact of what we've seen today, but also making sure that there are products that we can do and use right now to help us stay healthy.
So I'm so glad you asked that, because we were talking about stem cells. So what we do at the Regenerative Medicine Institute isn't just stem cells. The secret here is maintaining both your body cells and stem cells in ideal functional condition. So both our body cells and stem cells, okay, we have 50 trillion cells that make up the human body. They need certain nutrients just to function at their ideal levels. So Healthy Cell, our company, healthycell.com, produces I would say, what we call bioceuticals. These are things that are that impact at the level of our genes and are able to help restore the function of the key genes that keep us healthier longer, and able to actually turn down some of those genes that are involved in aging and chronic inflammation. Now, it took me about 8 years to create our Healthy Cell products. And the biggest impact now is, pills and tablets have been around since the early 30s and 40s. And frankly, very little of what's in pills and tablets actually gets into our body and then eventually to our cells. So the biggest advance now in nutrition, daily nutrition, is the fact that we have these new bioactive gels, these microgels, that actually encapsulate these essential vitamins and minerals, plant extracts, herbal extracts, digestive enzymes, so that they can enter into the body without causing irritation in the intestine, but dramatically improve absorption by 165% more than capsules or tablets. So this has been a major advent in cellular nutrition. And the products at Healthy Cell are designed to improve both stem cells and body cell function. So what we look at is the cellular aging process. And at both Healthy Cell and RMI, we know how a cell goes from a 20-year-old super healthy cell to an 80-year-old damaged cell, which unless it's removed can turn into cancer. We know what happens decade by decade to cells as they age, which impact our body. So our products have been designed to slow that transition from healthy to damaged cells and to help improve how those cells function. And frankly, the real secret is limiting damage to our DNA. And for instance, at Healthy Cell, we have products that limit DNA damage and actually repair damage. We have products that help you sleep. So one of the products, REM sleep, is one of the best sellers because if you don't sleep 7 hours a night, at least 7 hours, your immune function is dramatically negatively impaired. Your incidence of depression is higher. Your incidence of weight gain is higher. And in women, we now see data, if they're not sleeping 7 hours, their incidence of breast cancer is dramatically higher. So cellular nutrition is what we focus on. And at healthycell.com, and I believe you've even tried some of the products, you can feel the difference within days on these products.
You can definitely feel it, and I've talked about this before. And as a plug on that, if you want to go try Healthy Cell, you can go to it, use my name Collins, and you'll get 20% off on that. Because this is one of those things where I just don't talk about it. I actually use it. And Dr. Jim Papa, what you just said there at the end, I had gotten the BioMulti. I take Focus Recall, which is another one. But there was a time when I was out. I was getting my orders set up, and I was out for about 3 days, and I could feel the difference. It was amazing. And that was just after 30. I can't imagine now after going 60, 70 days at this how it would be. Dr. Jim Poppy, you have opened a lot of ideas today. You've opened a lot of thoughts, I think, for people who listen to this about stem cells and the regenerative quality of just being healthy, not only in stem cells, but also in products like Healthy Cell and others that we do the daily maintenance as we look forward to working that. I look forward to talking with you more, and getting this more open, I think, and active, where we could actually see more of this in the United States and overcome the static condition of medicine. So I just want to thank you for the work you're doing, and thank you for coming on and talking about it today.
Doug, it's my pleasure, and I'd be more than happy to come back and emphasize lifestyle along with the right nutrition and along with the right types of therapies. I believe will give us decades more of good quality health and time, so we can spend that time with our family, the people we love, but also doing the things that we love and help other people. That's what it's about.
That's what it's all about. Thank you, Dr. Jim Papa. Appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Hey, everybody, it's Doug Collins. I can't wait to tell you about a new partner here on the Doug Collins podcast, Healthy Cell. HealthyCell.com. You can go to their website. They are reimagining the way that we take vitamins. I mean, look, you don't still listen, for the most part, record players or for the vintage side. You look at for old time, you don't listen for the crispest, clearest. There's things out there that you get right now that have updated in the future. And we're still taking vitamins like we did back in the 1930s. This new technology, this new product from Healthy Cell is a microgel that takes your vitamins, puts them in a gel form. You can take it straight out of the pack. You can mix it in water or your favorite food, but it gets into your system so much quicker. 165% better absorption through this microgel technology. And believe me, the more you get in the nutrients into your body, the better you're going to be. They have a full product line. I take these medicine, these Metagel packets. They are amazing. We have been on them now for a little over a month, and I can tell the biggest difference. I've taken vitamins most of my adult life, and the way these work is just something that I don't think that you can find anywhere else. Again, it's healthycell.com. You can go /Collins or use Collins in the promo code to get a 20% discount. You don't want to miss this. Please go check out their website, healthycell.com. Microgel for these vitamins that are the best thing out there right now to keep you healthy and listening to the Doug Collins Podcast. Folks, I don't know about you, but I cannot stand a towel that simply moves water around me after my shower. I like a towel that grabs you, takes the water, gets it off of you, and does what a towel's supposed to do, dry you off. I've had so many towels I bought over time. Some are expensive, some were cheap, but again, when they just sort of move the water around, I could just stay in the shower and stayed wet. I need a towel that gets me dry. That's where our friends at MyPillow come in. They have towels, and you're not going to believe the bargain that they have right now. Mike and the folks at MyPillow have offered a 6-piece towel set. That's 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths, regularly $109.99 for $39.99. All you got to do is have code word Collins. You can go to mypillow.com, or you can call them at 1-800-986-3994. If you want towels that actually do what they're supposed to do, dry you off. You know, that's what we do here on the Doug Collins Podcast. We talk about real answers and real solutions for a complicated world. Well, sometimes you may not think that getting water off of you is a complicated process, but undoubtedly it is for some towel companies. It's not for the folks at MyPillow who actually have a towel, the MyTowel, which is a great investment for you. And right now you can get it on sale regularly $109.99 for only $39.99. And that is with code word Collins. Also, anything else that you want to go on there, you can still got the slippers, you still got the MyPillows, you still got everything that is on that wonderful website. You want to go check it out. Use code name Collins and get your discounts. Folks at MyPillow are waiting on you right now.